so many deals already done, but one can assume safely, I think, that there are still many to come. Just over 24 hours from now, as the NHL's trade deadline will officially kick in at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Darren Dreger is with us. He's probably parched from talking about all the deals done so far, Dregs. Why don't we start, appropriately enough, with Buffalo? Obviously, there are members of the fan base that were disappointed that Jakob Chychrun went to a division rival, but that doesn't preclude Kevyn Adams from doing something different here before the deadline. What might the possibilities be?
Well, I don't think it's nearly as sensational as acquiring Jakob Chychrun, obviously. And the messaging that I get from Buffalo sources is that Adams is likely going to continue to poke around the depth world, right? And you get that from a lot of different general managers, and that's primarily recognition for what has gone on, which has been madness over the last few days. I mean, normally what you see is the Horvats and the Tarasenkos go early. They're bigger pieces, right? And then things kind of slow a little bit, and then they drag in the week leading up to the trade deadline. You get, some deals historically, one or two, but never like the onslaught that we've experienced since Tuesday was absurdly busy. Mm-hmm. But just to wrap a bow on the Jake Chychrun and the Buffalo Sabres for a moment here, I think that Kevyn Adams made it abundantly clear to Bill Armstrong, look, if you don't have a deal that you like, circle back to us. If you're willing to be a little bit more flexible with your asking price, whatever that was from Buffalo, I don't know. I'm not going to throw names out there, but you can assume that they'd have been lofty ads and not just draft picks. What I was told all the way through this process, the Arizona Coyotes made it clear they weren't taking money back, and all they wanted was draft picks, top-end prospects, or worst case, good players on entry-level contracts. That was the ask from all of these clubs. So I think that Kevyn Adams made it clear to Bill Armstrong, circle the wagons, do what you got to do. And if you're in a position where you're willing to be a bit more flexible, then, we want to stay in it. But it really didn't go beyond that. So, stranger things have happened. Maybe something falls in the lap, that Kevin wasn't expecting. But aside from that, I think, honestly, he's not going to do a whole heck of a lot, and maybe just depth ads, if anything.
It took 18 months for Jakob Chychrun to be traded. One guy that has been in the trade rumors for better part of 4 months now, 3.5 months, is Brock Boeser. Duffer just brought him up before the break. Could we see, number one, Boeser go? And two, I always thought he'd be a good fit with the Sabres.
Right.
Could that be something that Kevyn Adams is engaged in talks with Vancouver right now?
I haven't heard that connected to Buffalo, but I'll tell you this, a curious trade, not to shift it over to the Boston Bruins, but a curious trade where, the Bruins acquired Tyler Bertuzzi, and Boeser's name was potentially attached to the Boston Bruins, because now what we know is that Taylor Hall is on long-term injury. The Boeser situation is a tricky one, obviously. He's not the fastest player out there, but, on a good team, a team with some speed and depth, he can certainly add some scoring punch. What I was told last night by a source very close to it is that any team that's comfortable engaging in trade talks and Brock Boeser is most comfortable with Boeser's annual average salary coming down to a value of around $4 million. So how do you make that work? I mean, the Canucks to this point haven't been willing to retain salary. They'd have to eat between 30 and 40% or take bad contracts the other way. And there's really no urgency for the Vancouver Canucks to do that. There isn't. They can wait until the summer. And, JT Miller is somewhat similar. I mean, he hasn't even started in on his mega extension at $8 million a year. And already there's a whirlwind of trade speculation around him. But I have not heard any connection of Buffalo to Brock Boeser and the Canucks.
But Boeser was also, speculated to be a good fit for Pittsburgh, and they went in the Granlund direction. What other teams then would still be potential suitors for Boeser, in your opinion? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, are there any other teams in the East that just want to keep loading up to what's already been an unbelievable couple of weeks?
Yeah, again, and I'm not being specific to Brock Boeser, but we keep watching Donnie Waddell and the Carolina Hurricanes. How are they going to respond? With great respect to Jesse Puljujärvi, who they acquired as a salary dump, really, from the Edmonton Oilers, and Shane Gostisbehere, who's going to help them. He fits into the type of play that the Hurricanes employ. But Waddell has not added a piece up front, and they are looking for a scoring forward. So that would make some sense. But there's still some interesting names that are out there that maybe are even more intriguing, both financially and with expiring deals. You've got Jacob Vrana with the Detroit Red Wings. All right, there's some history there, but if you look at the productivity from that player for a cup contending team, certainly a playoff team, I think he'd be an intriguing ad, or at least a consideration. And then what about a restart with Philip Zadina in Detroit? He's a 23-year-old kid. It hasn't gone the way that he was expecting or hoping, or the Red Wings were expecting or hoping, but maybe a fresh start gets him going. And, then beyond that, you look at Max Domi. Guys, there's a lot of buzz around Max Domi and the Chicago Blackhawks. The problem is the ask, teams aren't willing to cough up yet anyway, a second-round draft pick for Max Domi. And we haven't even talked about James Van Riemsdyk and the Philadelphia Flyers. So there are other options that some of these teams are looking at, beyond, what's going on with the Vancouver Canucks with Brock Boeser and JT Miller.
A lot of people in Buffalo are talking goaltenders, right? Like the fans want to see maybe a goalie be added to the Sabres. I look at the TSN trade bait board as of this morning. It's really slim picking with goaltenders. Is there a name that would be surprising maybe at some point that we didn't talk about yet?
Well, in terms of being traded?
Yeah.
And not to Buffalo, just generally speaking. Well, yeah, I mean, I haven't heard anything in terms of goaltending specific to Buffalo. What's going to happen with Jonathan Quick and the Columbus Blue Jackets?
Yeah.
Obviously, Rob Blake and Jarmo Kekalainen essentially made an agreement that Jonathan Quick goes to Columbus, but he's not staying in Columbus. So now it's up to Jarmo to figure out, okay, well, where's a contending fit for Jonathan Quick? Some of them speculating on the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, that makes some sense to me. And maybe by Vegas bringing in the two pieces that they did up front in Barbashev and Teddy Bluger, maybe that's all they're doing up front, and they're saving a little bit for Jonathan Quick and goaltending. But I didn't get that last night from Vegas sources. And then after that, it gets a little bit more thin, doesn't it? I mean, there's some loose speculation around John Gibson and the Anaheim Ducks. We're told that Pat Verbeek isn't shopping Gibson, but he's certainly willing to listen. And John Gibson would be. I mean, that's a bit sketchy for me. I mean, he's had some good games. There's no doubt about that this year, but he's had a handful of clunkers as well, and he comes with a contract. So other than that, what's going on with Carolina and their goalie situation, as we seem to touch on every other week, it seems relatively quiet there.
Yeah. They just need to bubble wrap all three of them.
Yeah.
Oh, but Marty likes Kevin LeBanc. Any news on him?
Not that I'm aware of, but stay tuned. We still have time. I'll dig on that for next week, Marty.
No, Marty's gonna push back. Now, Marty, you're gonna tell him I like somebody, right?
Yeah. So Duffer likes Max Comtois.
Okay.
How about that one?
Yeah. Okay. Good player. Absolutely.
Well, I just think, look, we were trying to come up with names that have not resurfaced anywhere. And we're like, okay, we've exhausted the conversation on everybody that is available and that we like or we don't like. So we're trying to come up with different names.
Good luck.
You mentioned Max Domi. I mean, it's a no thanks for me. Like, yeah, he's having a nice season in Chicago, but I just don't see that here in Buffalo. And you say it's kind of quiet with the Sabres. So are we like, okay, Riley Stillman was it? And
maybe,
we hope that Dahlin and Tuck are healthy and they make a decent run for the wild card spot.
Yeah. I mean, that's the hope, right? And it's not going to come through a lack of trying or effort here by Kevyn Adams. I'm not suggesting he's sitting on his hands and waiting for the phone to ring and you know the piece that he's been looking to add that would be a surprise ad just pops in his lap. But you look at the trade bait list right now, guys, and you're right, Marty. When you look at that list, there's nobody there among the available that really jumps out at you, is there? So is there
Well,
a
there's
hockey
one
trade?
that does, and it's a
Yeah.
little weird, but it would be Nick Schmaltz and Duffer. You've talked about Nick Schmaltz for a while, and he or
Yeah.
Lawson Krause and Arizona kind of like doing what they're doing. So could Nick Schmaltz be in play?
Oh no, he's definitely in play. Yeah, there's no question about that. And you know, Nick Schmaltz seemed to be a fit with the Carolina Hurricanes, and I'm not sure why that deal didn't get done or how close it came to getting done. But that's a contract that the Arizona Coyotes would definitely like to move. You know, we've talked about the idea of Lawson Krause. If Lawson Krause were in play, I'm sure Kevyn Adams would knock down doors, and so would 20 other NHL general managers, because he's that quality of a player. But a source close to Lawson said it would be shocking if he were traded, because the Arizona Coyotes talk about him as being their next captain. And they've got a good investment there early on in the process with Lawson Krause. So you never know, but you know, now you're swinging, right? You're just trying to pluck things out of the air, Marty, just hoping that they somehow land
I am
in
a
Buffalo.
swinger. That's how I played the game.
You're a swinger. Okay, good for you.
Yeah. See, that's my, yeah. Okay. We'll leave it at that. Sorry.
How could anyone affiliated in any way with Arizona use the word shocking to any situation that could develop? That doesn't jive. Like,
I know.
Oh,
They keep making trades though, right? And it's interesting because they're so below the floor of the salary cap looking for next year, and have what, like 16 players under contract. So yeah, Billy Armstrong's had his hands full in concluding the Chychrun saga and all of that, but he better have a sharp pencil to get some of the deals done that he's going to need to ice a hockey team next year.
Yeah, no doubt about that. All right, Dregs, thank you. Stay well. Enjoy tomorrow. We will see you very soon.
Well, you guys have a great weekend, because after tomorrow, I know I'm going to have a great
I'll
weekend.
see you tomorrow. So if you want to bring the swinger thing tomorrow, when we're together in studio, you talk about it. That's good.
I'll bring the t-shirt gun so you can have some fun there with Hedge Company.